And today we're talking to my amazing afternoon co-op, Abbie Pinter, and Abbie is going to be talking about organ donation, which is a subject very near and dear to my heart. So, Abbie, tell us about organ donation.
All right, so organ donation is when an individual legally donates one or many of their organs to another individual. They can do this either by giving their consent, or if they're deceased, their next of kin would give their consent. So I am going to talk about two types of donation, deceased donation and living donation. But before I do that, I'm going to just let you guys know how you can become an organ donor. So you can do this either by signing up at your local motor vehicle department or just online. So it's super easy, super quick, not much time at all. So deceased donation is one of the most common types of donation. And even though that this is the most common type of donation, it is very hard to donate organs after an individual has died. This is because the organs have to be preserved under very special conditions. This usually happens after the individual is brain dead, and this is because the individual is then put on a ventilator and their cardiopulmonary function is kept intact. This means that the blood and oxygen are still flowing throughout the person's body and the organs are still viable. Now, brain death is irreversible, so this is, of course, after the medical team and surgeons have tried everything in their power to keep the individual alive. However, after this, organ donation is a possibility because they cannot come back from it. So if they are a candidate, so the hospitals will notify the organ procurement organization of any patient that has died or is nearing death. From this, they are going to talk to the family and see either if they are a candidate or if they're a donor or if they would consider donation. And after this, if they decide to go for donation, they're going to perform a medical evaluation of the organs. So matching, so the Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network, they are going to generate a list of all the organs or all the individuals that need organs, and if you say you have a heart, the heart is going to go to the best matched patient on that list. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about matching in the future because it is going to be a little bit more complicated than this, but we'll get to that in just a second. So the actual recovering of the organs, so a transplant team is going to go to where the donor is. They're going to replace the medical team that tried to help this patient live and everything, and they are going to take out the organs, and they are going to surgically close any of the incisions that they make. This is sometimes really important to the family if they want to have an open casket funeral or something, so the individual is still going to look the same. Next, they have to rush the organs to the recipient. This is because the organs are viable for a short period of time. They're either going to do this by ambulance, commercial airplane, or helicopter, depending on the distance. So for living donation, there's about 6,000 donations that have occurred every year. The most common would be of the kidneys. This is because the donor can still survive. Since they have two kidneys, they can still survive with that one kidney. Another common organ donated is the liver. This is because the liver can regenerate by itself. And after the donation has occurred for both the recipient and the donor, in about 8 weeks, the liver has regenerated itself to almost its full size and functioning. So another thing that is commonly donated are the intestines, the pancreas, and then part of the lung. This is because they can still function without these parts of them. Of course, they are not they cannot regenerate, but the person can still function properly. So this is a general criteria for donors. Again, there are many exceptions to it. The individual usually is 18 to 60 years old. Of course, the individual could be younger. If you're getting your license and you're 16 and you go to your motor vehicle department and you want to sign up, as long as you get parent consent, you can do that. Here are some of the lists of things that the donor should not have had, but again, there could be exceptions. So this is cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, kidney disease, and heart disease. So follow-up for living donors. So in general, the short-term follow-up is positive and they are all doing well. However, the long-term effects of it are not quite known yet because there haven't been many follow-ups with it. So the National Institutes of Health are actually conducting a study where they're following a lot of individuals that did living donations, and they're looking at the long-term effects, so we can learn a little bit more about that. So back to the matching. So I'm just going to list some of the common factors when it comes to matching the organs. So we're going to have blood type, body size, the actual medical condition of the recipient, as well as the distance between the donor and the recipient. Likewise, in 2014, they started doing living donations of the face and hands, or not living donations, but deceased donations of the face and hands. So skin type and color is now becoming one of these factors as well. So to be put on the national waiting list of organs, you're going to have a referral from your physician. After this, you're going to pick a transplant center. You'll schedule an evaluation there. If you are approved, then you will go on the transplant list. 10 days after you're put on the transplant list, you're going to get a letter in the mail saying the exact date and time of when you were put on the list. This is super important because, as I was saying earlier with matching, the organ goes to the best matched patient. So if there are two people waiting on a heart, the individual that's been waiting longer is going to probably get that organ. So finances, this is kind of important more for the recipient to worry about. If they're on the waiting list, it's kind of important to plan ahead. So a lot of the finances are going to include tests and hospital stays, the actual transplant surgeons that will do the organ transplant, many things after you have the transplant, such as rehabilitation, PT, and medicines. So it's kind of important to plan ahead with that. This is kind of interesting. So sometimes the recipients want to contact the individual or the individual's families that have done the donation. So they just kind of want to say thank you or check up on them, and they will contact UNOS, and they will check with the recipient's family to see if they want to be in contact with the donor. And through this, if both sides agree, then they can meet and just talk and everything. So what can exactly be donated? So for organs, many things can be donated. We have the heart, liver, lungs, kidneys, pancreas. Many other things can be donated as well. As I mentioned, the hands, face, corneas, blood, bone marrow, platelets. So you can just see there are a lot of things that can actually be donated. So next I just want to go through a couple of statistics so you guys can get an idea of how many organ donations occur and what is exactly needed. So as of August 2017, there were 114,000 individuals on the waiting list for organ donation, and as well in 2014 there were 34,770 donation transplants that actually occurred. So you can see the discrepancy within those, and there are still many donations that need to be fulfilled. Likewise, because of this, there are about 20 people every day that die just waiting for an organ because they're in such high demand. And then another interesting kind of fact about this is, while 95% of American citizens, U.S. adults, support organ donation, only 54% of them are actually signed up as organ donors. And then here is this just kind of a visual aid of the statistics I've been talking about. So these are the people on the waiting list. So you can see as of 2017, here is at the top. Then the blue is the transplants that actually have occurred. And then the yellow at the bottom is the donors that have either donated one or many organs. And then here are my sources.
Wow, that was absolutely fantastic, not to mention incredibly in-depth. I want to thank Abbie. She did an amazing job today, a full 9-minute lecture today, so I am so happy and so impressed. Thank you so much for educating everyone on organ donation.